Cool. Hey.
All right. So we're starting this this demonstration, and perhaps you can mute all to start with, Barbara. Thank you. Welcome everybody to the Chelmsford Art Society demonstration. My name is Claire Gagnon, and I'm a member.
Oh, that just muted
That's
everybody.
Okay. I'm a member of the Chelmsford Art Society, and I will be doing the demonstration tonight. So the demonstration tonight is an acrylic painting that I will paint in front of you. And before I go to the demonstration, then I will tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a fine artist, and I'm also a teacher at Claire Art School in Lowell at the Brush Art Gallery. And I've opened my school 3 years ago. And before that, I had been painting for 25 years. But 3 years ago, I lost my job in IT, and I decided to do something for which I'm very passionate about, which is art. So that's why I decided to open my art school. And as a painter, I like to paint with acrylic paint. And I also do a little bit of watercoloring, and I love drawing. So in preparation for this meeting, I have prepared a little PowerPoint presentation. So when I was a project manager in IT, I used to do PowerPoint presentation all the time, I guess. Oh, you have to enable me to share my screen, Barbara, please.
And how do I do that?
You click on share screen.
Multiple participants can share simultaneously?
Yes.
Okay.
Click on that. So now I can share my screen. And so first I want to show you, this is the photo that I took that I will use as inspiration for the demonstration tonight. And this photo is actually a photo of Little River in Gloucester, Massachusetts. It's just a beautiful, beautiful area. So I prepared this little slideshow, or PowerPoint presentation, I should say. I'll make sure that this is not in the way. And so what I did in preparation for this demonstration is I did a couple of thumbnails. The purpose of doing a thumbnail is to see if in using 3 tones, white, gray, and black, you can come up with a composition that will be a strong composition. So if your little thumbnail that is in black, gray, and white, if it's a strong composition, it has a chance when you put it on a large canvas to become a good painting. If the composition in the black, white, and gray in the thumbnail is not strong, there's no chance that your painting will be strong, no matter how beautiful the colors you use. So I like to start by doing a little thumbnail. This one is, it's 5 inches by 4 inches. And I like to do the thumbnail to the same scale as I do the painting. So my painting will be on a 16 by 20 canvas. And so therefore I chose to do the thumbnail 4 by 5, which is the same ratio. And I'm sure, Sue, you are happy that I'm talking numbers now. And if Leslie were here, she would say the same thing. But anyway, another way to do it to the same scale is you can use a thumbnail and make it in centimeter the same size, so 16 centimeters by 20 centimeters, so it will be smaller, but to the exact same ratio as your canvas, that is 16 by 20, for example. Anyway, so I like to do a little thumbnail, and the thumbnail is great because it's small, and this is something you can realize very easily in like 5 or 10 minutes. In this case, what I did is I used a gray paper with a white charcoal and a black charcoal. and I save the gray of the paper for the mid-tone, and I use the white for the lightest area and the black for the darkest areas. And so you can see this is the photo that I used, and this is the thumbnail. Now, when I was done with this, I thought, maybe I can zoom in a little bit on this photo and make the composition a little stronger, which I did on this second slide. So now here in this slide, I zoomed in on the photo that I had before. I cropped into this area of the photo, and I created the thumbnail. And when I look at this thumbnail here, I find that it's a lot stronger than the one that I had before. And the reason being that there's more water in this thumbnail here. So the eye enters through here and then can navigate here before it goes to this area, and then look at this area over here. So this is why I will be painting this rather than the first one. So this is pretty good too, but it's a little, what happens in this thumbnail after I was done doing it, I realized that the amount of water, so the amount of white that we can see in the middle, is almost the same size as the amount of grass, which is the gray here. And that made for a less interesting composition. So I went to this one. So as I am talking, I know you are all muted, but if you have any questions about what I'm explaining, then you have two choices. You can unmute yourself and ask the question, or if you prefer and if you know how, you can enter your question into the chat, and Barbara will be receiving questions and interrupt me with the question when it's a good time to interrupt. But don't be afraid to ask questions if you need to, if you want to ask question, or you want to get additional information, or if you have a comment. All right, so this is how I start. And I am now going to move on to stop sharing, because now I'm going to show you these thumbnails. So this is what I have here. So if you, now that we can see them side by side, you can see how this one is a lot more inviting with all this large amount of water here. And so the eye circulates better here as opposed to on this one. So that's why I'm going to do this one rather than this one. And you can see they're not very, very large. When I do the thumbnail, one of the things that I always do is I separate my my paper or my square in 3 equal parts this way, 3 equal parts this way. And I do the same thing with the photo from which I paint or I draw. And so therefore, when it's time to put, you know, this little area, when it's time to put the elements on a thumbnail, then it's easier to place them in the right spot, and it's easier to represent the actual photo. Once you know how to do that, then you can use your artist's license to move something, like move a tree or move an area of the grass. But until you are able to do something like this, I don't recommend, I do recommend that you do the same thing if you want to use the thumbnail approach. All right. So is there any questions about this so far as I get ready to paint? Oops. All right. So I'm going to be painting on this canvas. So I like to tone my canvas. This is a 16 by 20 canvas that I like to tone. So I toned it prior to class with this orange, yellow-orange color. It's a mix of the colors that I have on my palette. I will tell you what colors that I have on my palette. But before I put it down, I also want to bring your attention to see, these are the marks on these two here. So this side is divided into 3 equal parts, and the top is the same thing, this, and this. So this way I can look at my thumbnail or at the photo with these same marks and place the different parts of the scene in the right area on the canvas. And sometimes what I do too is I actually put the lines here, and at the end of the painting everything has been painted over, so it doesn't matter that I put some marks there. All right, my palette. The palette that I use in my studio is a glass palette. So it's 16 by 20. Yeah. And underneath I put a foam core and it's taped with duct tape. And these are the colors that I use. And note how I put the color from light to dark. And I always put it in the same order, no matter if I paint in plein air or in my studio, or if I paint somewhere else, I always put the colors in this order. And I put my white and then my cool yellow, warm red, cool blue, warm blue. And the colors that I use are, so first I use, so these are the colors. The white is titanium white. The 2 yellows that I use are Canyon Yellow Pale, or Canyon Yellow Light works too. Canyon Yellow Medium. And then I use Canyon Red Medium, or in this case it says Canyon Red Hue. And I usually use permanent alizarin crimson, but tonight I put crimson on my palette. They're very close. And then for the blues, I use ultramarine blue and cobalt blue. So the brand that I use, I really like this Winsor Newton Galleria. I really like this brand. I find that the paint from these tubes, it's very buttery and it stays wet on the palette for a long time, even though they're acrylics. And when I paint, even when I paint outside, I can paint for 3, 4, 5 hours and the paints will not be completely dry, even after painting for such a long time. Well, of course, if I haven't used all this paint for 4 or 5 hours, then what have I been doing? I haven't been putting enough paint on my canvas. So enough with the talking, unless there is any questions about the supplies. I also have water in a bowl. I don't use any medium to paint in my studio or outside. I like to just use the paint and paint. All right, so to start with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by doing a drawing with paint with my brush. So Barbara, if you want, you can spotlight my iPad so that people can see the painting a little closer instead of seeing me.
Wait, I'm trying to find it.
Meanwhile, I'm going to start. Did you find it?
I found it, but I'm seeing start video, but I'm not seeing spotlight under this. Wait a minute.
Oh, maybe I didn't give you back the host. Thought I did. Well, then maybe.
Bear with us, please.
Hmm?
First session that we're doing this, little hiccups as we get learned how to do this. Make host, yes. Oh no,
No, you're the host.
I'm the host.
Okay, let me see. Oh, yeah. So do you see at the top?
I see your Claire's iPad. When I
Yeah.
go to the blue box next to it, I see start video chat, rename, make host, remove, but I do not see spotlight on it.
Okay, but what you have to do is you have to sorry about that, guys. So either you make me the host and I do this, or do you see at the top right corner it says speaker view? Or it has 9 little squares together in a little icon. Do you see
Right.
that?
I see gallery view.
Okay, click on that. So now do you see all the little squares
Yes.
of everybody?
Yes.
Well, one of them is my iPad, and on there, if you click on the little blue 3 dots.
I only see start video chat, rename, make host, remove, put in waiting room, or hide. I don't see make spotlight.
Okay, make me the host then. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so let me see if that works for me. Oh, I think it's because the video is not working. Okay, so now this will work. And I'm going to make you back the host, Barbara.
Okay.
It's because the video had stopped. All right, so now you can see my canvas a little better, closer, so you can see what I'm going to do in terms of my demonstration. Okay, so first I'm going to put the horizon line. Horizon line in this case will be a little lower than 1/3. So it's about this height. So I'm just going to put the line like this. It's not a perfect straight line, but this defines where the water at the bottom will meet the faraway mountain in the back. And the faraway mountain in the back is it's a very low mountain, very far away. And this one's a little higher. It goes like this. And then I have here on the right-hand side, I have this bush, or this all these trees that are like this. Someone is not muted. So maybe you can manually look at the list, Barbara, and mute the person. Or all right, so here we have the trees on the left, and in the middle we have this little land that advances in the water like this. And then right underneath it, there's this other piece of land that also advances in the water. So this will give me this land on the right. And on the left, the trees is a lot more, it's a lot more to the, I mean, on the right, it's a lot more on the right. So just, it's important not to make this shape and this shape the exact same, even if in your scene it's the same. It's just going to make it more interesting to make them different. So now I'm painting with a lot of water and very little pigment on my brush. So this is all of the background. And maybe, just maybe, this should be more like this to make it more interesting. And I have land here on this side, just a little bit like this. And it goes down like this. Now, I have this other piece of land that advances towards the middle, and the height of it is about at the bottom of this one. So I'm gonna go like this, and then it goes down a little bit bigger than this because it's a little closer to the viewer. And it's got a nice angle here. And I'm already going to put the reflection for this one because it's an important part of, ouch, sorry. An important part of the scape. Now this comes down like this. That's an approximate. I will readjust it as I paint more. Now this is the land that comes down, and it's about in the middle of the bottom and this line. That's where the top of this is, about here. Can you still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And right now I'm not going to worry about the fact that this is grass and the edge will not be a straight line. I'm just going to indicate where it is. And see, I have the 1/3 mark here. That's where my 1/3, that's where this goes to. Goes like this. And there's a little bit of land here like this. And then the grass comes down some more to an area like this. All right, so now I have almost everything except I am missing the reflection for this in the water. Ouch. I should move this a little bit so I won't keep tripping on it. Okay. So this would probably reflect like this. Yes. And then this is where this is. Now this reflection is a mirror image of this tree, or this grouping of tree, I should say. So it's going to go like this. And of course, a reflection is never exactly the same because there are ripples in a tree, in the water, that prevents it from really appearing like it's a true exact mirror image. So now with this, I have to look at it and ask myself, do I need to move everything, anything at all? Like, is there anything that seems to be out of place? And as I look at this, these trees here, so I'm going to show you the photo. So if I show the photo, you can see these trees here, they're further away. I go like this, you'll see better. So these trees here, they're further away, further from the viewer than these ones. These ones are closer. And the reason that I say that is because this here is actually lower than this. So these trees here, they need to appear, and I'm going to make them a bigger mass. Right now, when I look at my painting,
The other guy were you there or no? No, well, I was, yeah, I went in.
Barbara, is this at your place that we hear that?
No, it's not, and I can't figure out who it is because it's
Okay, let me do it.
iPad 2 and iPad you and myself are the only ones who have the mic on.
iPad 2. That's not me.
Forget about that.
Okay.
There you go.
Muted.
Thank you. All right. So I was saying, so this grouping of trees here is the right size. This grouping of trees here, now I realize it's similar in size as this. And to make it more interesting, I'm going to make these trees a little bit bigger of a mass. So I'm going to instantly grow the trees. And to do this, I'm making my line bigger here. There. So by making this mass a bigger mass, it will make the overall painting a little bit more interesting. And I can even go a little further and make it a little bit more to the middle of this. Oh, yeah. So now I have this big mass. Okay, now I'm ready to paint. Unless maybe this here is a little too low, I think. So the great thing about having the drawing like this is you can adjust it before you start painting it. So we'll just make it more interesting like this. And this here will actually have more of a zigzag like this. Can't really see. So this will be like this. This will be like this. Yes. Okay. So of course, as I paint, I will paint over everything. So it will not show. All these lines will not show in the end. So now I'm going to use this brush. Can you see it? Yeah. This brush, which is it's fairly wide. It's as wide as my thumb. It's Simply Simon's for oil in acrylic, and it's number 16. Now, some people ask me what number is this, and I tell them, but if you go and buy a number 16 in another brand, it may very well be a different size. So if you want to use the exact same size and try to buy by the number, then you have to buy the same brand. So I'm going to start painting from the back to the front to do this demonstration. And starting with the back, I'm going to start with my sky. So the only colors that I'm using right now are cobalt blue and white. I find that cobalt blue is a very nice, it gives for a very nice sky. And when mixed with alizarin crimson to make a sunset, gives for a very nice purpley pink color. All right. So I'm making sure that I'm covering those lines that I made because I don't want to be left at the end with lines. And as I'm doing my very first coat, I'm not trying to cover very thickly, and but I'm trying to come up with a tone that is very close or equivalent to what I have on my photo. Now on my photo, the sky is very gray, but on this painting that I'm painting, I'm going to make it a sunny day. So that's why my sky is bluer. It's a bluer sky. than on the photo. And some people sometimes ask me, why is it that you tone your canvas with an orange before you start painting? This is truly a personal preference, but I really like the afterglow that results from having painted on an orange surface, because the orange will show through in some areas and it will give a nice glow. I like that. Sometimes I will paint without toning my canvas first, but I like to do that. Mostly I like to tone it. So now that I've covered my whole sky, I'm going to come back here with a lighter color closer to the horizon line. My acrylic paint is not dry yet, so I can easily paint wet into wet and avoid sharp edges in the sky. So there. So now I have this, and now I'm gonna add this faraway mountain. So the faraway mountain, to make the color for the faraway mountain, I'm gonna use a little bit of cobalt blue and a little bit of crimson or alizarin crimson and a lot of white. The faraway mountain appears to be gray rather than green, or sometimes it appears to be a bluish color or a purplish color. And the reason for that is because we see the faraway mountain through a lot of air, and in this air there's a lot of pollution, and there's sometimes some very thin cloud and some droplets of rain maybe. So that's why it does not appear to be very bright yellow. So this is a very far away mountain, and then next to it is mountain that is not as far away. As it comes forward, I'm going to start adding a little bit of yellow to the purple. And I'm going to make it a little darker as well. So I don't know if you've ever painted with acrylic, but acrylic dries a little darker than when you actually apply it. And so when painting with acrylic, you have to remember that, especially if you're trying to match a color that's already that you've already painted. Then you have to remember that it's going to dry a little darker. So now I'm adding a little yellow to my color to make it a little bit more blue. I mean, a little bit more green. But since this is still the faraway mountain, I keep adding the red to it. Now this is too dark. A little white. Yep. So we're recording this session, and once it's recorded, we'll make it available if you want to watch it again after. Make it available. I will put the link on my website, ChaiclearArtSchool.com, and I'm sure Barbara will make it available also on the website for the Chelmsford Art Society. So I've done my faraway mountain now, and I'm going to add this tree. Now to paint this tree, I'm going to mix some cobalt blue and Canyon Yellow Pale, a little bit of white. And this color, this tree, will automatically appear like it's a little closer to the viewer because it's more in focus. And it has more yellow in it, no red at this time. It's more of a greener color, although it's still a little turquoise. There. And I have my tree, and I'm going to do the land as well. And I'm making it, I'm not being too fussy about it because this is the first coat. And as I add more and more coat, then I will refine everything. So I'm going to use another brush. I keep using big brushes because I am doing large areas. So now I'm going to paint these trees on this side. And these trees are, they're darker. So if I show you the photo, these trees here are darker than these ones. So I'm going to put a little bit more red in my green because these are more in the shadows. That's one of the reasons why they're darker. So I'm using ultramarine blue and Canyon yellow medium to make this green. So combining these two colors together will give you a green that is more of an olive color. And because they're in the shade, I'm going to use the complementary color to green to darken this color. And I'm going to do one big area of trees here. And note how a brush doesn't always have to be used like this. It can be used any way you want. And you can use any tool you want basically to paint. I like using the palette knife sometimes, but today I've decided to do a demonstration with brushes. Have you ever wondered, well, I've wondered that for a long time until I studied art, and that's how I found out, but an artist usually, when you look at a body of work from an artist, any artist, even like today's artists or, you know, the grandmasters from the old days, the reason why you can recognize the body of work, there are a few reasons, but one of the reasons is because an artist would usually use the same palette for all of the artwork that they do. And that's what I do, and that's how you can easily recognize the artwork that I do. I know there's one person listening today who's friends with me on Facebook, and she usually comments on the paintings that I do, especially because I do a lot of blues. I like to paint with blues, and she actually made me notice that this is what I do, and that's how she recognizes my work. So thank you so much for making me realize something I didn't even know about myself. And I'm not going to name who it is. I know you know who you are, just so that I don't make anybody uncomfortable. All right, so here what I'm doing is I'm putting this dark underneath. There is some dark where the land meets the water. And on top of it, there is a very light green color. So to make this light green, I'm going to use a little bit of cobalt blue, a lot of yellow. And for this, I'm using the Canyon Yellow Pale with also some Canyon Yellow Medium and some white. This is where this goes. just to give a hint of, okay, this is where we're going to have some lighter area. Right here. Okay. Lime green is my favorite color. There was a time where when I did my wash, I had to do one load with all my lime green clothes. That's how much lime green clothes I had. All right. So now I have this land that comes forward, and I'm just going to indicate this reflection. Now, when you paint a reflection, you have to make sure that it's a mirror image. If you're unsure if it's a mirror image, you can put a piece of paper that is transparent, trace around it, then flip it over like this, not like this, like this, then you can see if you have the same shape. Now, once you have done that, you know that you have the right shape, and now you have to play with the edges of the reflection, because the edges of the reflection will be soft as opposed to the actual trees that will have sharp edges. So as a first coat, I am putting a similar kind of a green in the reflection of those trees. But when I refine everything, I have to make sure that my reflection actually reads like a reflection. And so therefore, if the trees are dark, they will reflect lighter in the water. If the trees are light or the object is light, it will reflect darker in the water. Next time you walk by a lake, you can observe and find out for yourself if that's true or not. All right. So now I have my trees over here. These trees, note how the green here is different from this green. Now I have to put in my water in the middle. And then after that, I'll put the grass on this side. So the water in the middle is light. Now, even though the water in the middle is light, it's extremely rare that the water will be lighter than the sky it's reflecting. So if this is truly the tone and the color that I have in my sky, I have to go with a little darker in my water. If you look at the photo, now this is a nice gray sky, and this is not a very good print of the photo. But if you look at the sky, you compare this with the water is at least one tone darker than the sky. And where there's a ripple, like over here, the water is even 2 or 3 tones darker. And then when it's a reflection, then it's even darker. So my water, I have to remember, and I have to observe and look at what I'm painting from. This will have to be slightly darker than the sky. But maybe this is not my final color for the sky. Let's put in the water. The water will be made mostly with cobalt blue and white. However, as the water goes way in the distance, there's always a little bit of pink that appears close to the horizon line. It needs to be a little lighter. So right now, if I want to test, I can go like this, say, my water will be lighter than my sky. So I would need to make it darker. However, Once this dries, it will be very close in tone. Well, I'm going to leave it there so you can see how it dries. I'm going to paint the water while this is drying. So very far away with a little pink in it and even more white. And it's important that when you paint the water, that it be straight. That's pretty cool. Now, if you're unsure if it's straight, don't hesitate to go like this. That's what I do sometimes. I just go like this. I look at it and I see, not straight. So if I were to show you, I'm going to try and show you. So if I put it like this, you can see it's not completely straight. It's got some ripples. So it's important to make it straight. I'm going to continue painting it. I'm going to put my hand down, make sure that I go make it straight. And also it's important to keep the edge soft. So I have this brush here with which I'm painting the water. I'm going to use this other brush here to repaint those faraway mountains, because I want to make sure that the edge in between the two is a soft edge. So I'm remaking the color of that mountain. And I'm going to go like this. So I don't know if it's a good idea. So I'm going like this. I don't know if you can see. But anyway, I'm going like this. And while this is still wet, now I'm coming back with my watercolor to try and keep the edge soft. To do this, it's just easier if you have a lot of paint on your brush. So it's easy to keep raising your horizon line by doing this. Just got to be careful. I have my two brushes. Can have some fun with it. Like so. So if I show you, I'm gonna try to show you a little closer. So if I show you, see it's still wet and the edge is, it's pretty soft. All right. Okay, continuing on. So I'm going to keep painting this water just to make sure that the whole water has been painted. And as I'm coming down with the water, I'm adding more and more blue mix. So it's becoming less and less red, and I keep it white. Here. And I'm making sure that I'm using enough paint. So as I'm painting here the water, I'm trying to remember that it's important that the whole canvas will be covered. So I'm going over certain things that I've already painted, knowing that this piece of land I've now covered a little bit with water, but I will come again and repaint on top. But as I'm doing my first coat, I'm making sure that I'm going all the way to this reflection and knowing that I will repaint. Same thing here, I have the shape of the land and I'm making sure that I'm going all the way to the edge. Here, it's time to shape this a little bit better because it was a little confusing the way that I had done it. And this will be like this, not white enough. So I'm using cobalt blue, a mix of cobalt blue and white. And perhaps down here, I'm going to get a little darker. It will be interesting with the wispy grass, the marshy land that will come on top. And as I'm coming down here, I can start adding maybe a little green, a little yellow to my blue. And I can also start using a little bit of ultramarine blue because it's a much darker blue. So I haven't used the ultramarine blue yet, but I started adding a little bit of yellow. So next time you go to the marshes and you observe the water, try to see how many colors you see in that water. It's amazing. It's like it never ends. It varies. It goes to blue, it goes to purple, it goes to green, it goes to aqua, then it goes to blue again, a different kind of blue. It never ends. So towards the bottom here, that's why I add a little bit of ultramarine blue, a little bit of cadmium red medium down here. And I think there's even too much white in my paint. So I'm adding the blue, the ultramarine blue directly from the palette without mixing. I'm painting everything together. All right, so now the only part that I haven't covered, the only part of the canvas that I haven't covered is this part. And I'm gonna start by doing the land down here, the land that is, it's kind of a gray. And how do you make gray? Ooh, you can make gray with all sorts of different colors. I really like to make gray with, starting with a purple. So purple is made with, in this case, I've used ultramarine blue and canyon red medium. And to this, I'm adding a teeny little bit of canyon yellow medium. I see I've added too much yellow, so now I'm adding more red and more blue. You can make gray basically from pretty much any combination of color. The important thing is the gray that you put in on the canvas, it's got to be harmonious with the rest of the painting. And it's got to represent what you see in nature where you were at that day, or in your photo if you're painting from a photo. Because some grays are more yellowish, some orangey, some are more greenish. I have a beautiful gray in my kitchen. Sometimes it looks completely green on the walls. I love that gray. It's almost like a taupe color. So this is like, there's a little bit of bland here at the bottom, and it's kind of like a purplish gray on the photo. So I'm putting this first, and then I'm going to add the grass on top. All right, so this grass here on the photo looks to be exactly the same color the whole way. So if you look here, if you look here, if you look here, and if you look here, all of this, it all looks to be the same green. It's kind of like a whiteout. It's almost whiteout green. But in order to show the depth, when you paint the marshes, what I like to do is I like to put more yellow and more red in this area of the grass that is closer to the viewer. And as it goes further and further back, then less yellow and less red. Let's see what I mean. I'm going to start by painting this area. In this area, I'm using the canyon yellow pale, to which I'm adding some cobalt. A little bit of a alizarin crimson, not too much. Some white. It gives me something like this. So it gives a green that's a little bit grayed out. And I think it's a little too thin, so we can't really see very well. Let me make it a little thicker. Okay, so this green here, I want this to appear a little grayish. So that's how I combine my cobalt blue with a little bit of canyon yellow pale, and I've added just a tinge of alizarin crimson and some white. And now, to represent the reflection of it, then I add a little bit more red, a little bit more blue. And I'm going to get the reflection part, because this piece of land is light with the grass on top, and so therefore the reflection will be darker. Darker than the grass that is on top. Not enough paint on my brush. That's why it's not working. Gotta put more paint. Had a friend, oh, I should say I have a friend who I paint with from time to time, and he always tells me to put more paint. And I got so mad at him for telling me that all the time that one day when I went painting with him, I painted with my palette knife the whole time. So I painted with a lot of paint that day, and he couldn't tell me that I was painting with, I wasn't using enough paint. So from then on, he had to have something else to tell me because I was painting with enough paint. Oops, looking for a smaller brush. What's happening now is this line is way too straight, and I have to represent where the grass meets the water. There's some kind of little piece of dirt there. And to make the dirt color, I like to use the Canyon Red Medium with Ultramarine Blue and Canyon Yellow Medium. Gives beautiful, rich, warm brown, which is what I'm going to put here. So this, it's almost like a crocodile. If I were to put some little teeth. Anyway, so this is the land. See, the figures are also good to paint with. So this is the land, and I have to come down and continue coming down with my grass. The grass that it comes down like this. Yeah, it comes forward. See how you can paint with not just the edge of the brush, not just the tip of the brush, you can paint with the whole brush. There. So now we have this grass, and this grass has an edge that helps read this grass. Oops, not this one. This one. And we'll have to indicate the reflection after. All right, so now I'm going to cover the last part of the grass. Now this part makes it more interesting if it has a little bit of a variation. So now I'm going to use the ultramarine blue and the Canyon Yellow Medium to give it a nice olive color here at the bottom. And I'm adding some yellow in this portion of the grass to make it appear like it's more coming forward. But a mix is always good. And once I will have covered all of the whole of the canvas, then I will back away and look at where I'm at with this and see if it's well balanced, if it seems to be good composition. Or do I need to adjust anything at this time? There's always time to be adjusted. And I was telling my students during the summer month, I was teaching free lessons. I was showing them how when painting a painting, oftentimes it feels like it's not coming out. It feels like it's not coming out. I just want to abandon, the whole process and never finish that painting. But if I keep at it and I keep with the process, then it usually comes out beautifully. So this happens to me, not just to, it happens to everybody. Remember, I've painted with some friends and they said, oh, it's not coming out, it's not coming out. And because we were at a paint out, in plein air, they had nothing else to do but to continue. So they continued. And then in the end, it came out beautiful painting. So sometimes you just have to step away from a few minutes and come back with a fresh eye. This was a recommendation that actually one of my very good friend, Bernie Petruzillo, he made this recommendation to me. See, he still teaches even though he can't see. He's so amazing. All right, so this looks a little funny here. All right. Now that I have done the painting, I have covered everything. Now is the time to step back. But before I do, I'm going to put the dirt. This area here, there's some dirt in the grass. So I made the dirt color again with ultramarine blue, yellow, Canyon yellow medium, and I also used red, Canyon red medium. It gives a nice rich brown, which I find gives a very interesting dirt color, which is what I need right here. And, see, because it's I put a lot of paint in my brush when I painted, it's still wet, so I can still have some fun and do wet on wet. All right, so now I'm going to step back and look at it from a distance. I find that this piece of land that comes forward on the right-hand side is too low. This section here, I immediately see it's too low. I want this to be higher. And I want this area to have more water. So I'm going to raise this higher right now. Without further ado. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint over with watercolor, cobalt blue and white. Oh, and it's got a little bit of red in it to go with the color that I had. So I'm going to raise this. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So now what's happening is I have some green on this brush. The same color that I had before. This will be better, yeah. Okay. Now this disappeared. Let's see what happens. Having removed that. Okay. So, it's already much better like this. Yes, that works better. Okay. So I'm gonna add this much higher. Let me just use a different brush. So Barbara, have you seen anyone, has anyone been asking any questions in the chat?
No, only Diane did, when she asked if you, something about, do we have access to the thumbnails? And that was it.
So do we have access to the thumbnails?
And will there be a way in the future to see the thumbnails or the photo while you are putting in the shape? So you were doing some of that. You were bringing up the picture periodically, but not the thumbnail.
Yeah. So this is the thumbnail. So let me put it like, let's see. I'm going to show you. This is the thumbnail that I'm using. This one here. And so you can see how it's shaping up. Actually, yeah. But I think here I painted it too low. So now I'm going to paint it a little higher. I hope that helped.
Yes. And you are at 820.
820. Okay. So I'm going to move this, and then I'm gonna go on to refining certain sections to show how, you know, how once it's all together, then, you know, what is the next step. It's too bad that we're doing this remotely. I like it when it's possible to have a little something to drink in the demonstration, a little something to eat. My mouth is a little dry. Okay, so I'm going to repaint this. Oh, and I'm out of white. So while I am doing this, I want to tell you guys, maybe some of you already know that in my art school, I started teaching in my studio again at the Brush Art Gallery, but I limit the number of people to 4 people per class to allow for social distancing instead of 8. And I have classes that are open for November and also for December. I also offer online classes, and those are on Saturday afternoon. I'm painting this a little higher. And everything is on my website, or you can also ask me at the end of the demonstration if you want more information. If you want me to send you the information in an email, I'll be happy to. Or you can ask Barbara for my contact information. If you don't have it, I'll be happy to guide you. Basically, my classes are for adults. I only do kids classes occasionally, and during the pandemic, I was offering free online classes, which was pretty well attended, and it was fun. Some of you have already attended these classes. All right, so I'm repainting this piece of land. I think this will look better. And I have my reflection that I have to make sure that I make the reflection a little darker with complementary color in the color that I painted the land. So I've added a little bit of red in that green to make it appear more like the reflection. I've also added a little bit of blue, and so basically I want to make it less white. There, this is good. All right, now that I've added this piece of land, and now I can put the other one back on top. There. Oops. And then I have to paint my water correctly. The water is a little too green right now. I'm going to add this water like this, more blue. So if you're painting wet on wet with acrylic, the secret to being able to cover a color that's wet is to paint thicker than the layer that you had underneath. And don't go over with a brush. Don't keep going over a brush, because if it gets contaminated with what was under, then you won't be able to keep it clean. Uh-oh. Oops. I don't know how that happened. Okay, now it's clean again. You know, I was teaching at the Whistler House Museum 2 summers ago, and I had a full class of students. They were kids age 10 to 14, and I don't know how I did that, but I was holding my palette and showing them what I had on my palette, and my palette went to the floor together with the water, everything, the whole thing went. And luckily, I had some helpers in the class, and they helped me and clean up the mess that I made. It was such a mess. All right, so now I've put back the water, and now's the time to, there, this is better. So much better like this. So much better like this. That's why you have to step back and look at what you've done before you continue forward. All right, so much better like this. So the eye goes in here, and have a lot of space to circulate here before it goes to this area, which is the center of interest. All right, so is my water darker or lighter than my sky? This water is actually darker than this sky, so we're good. But I want to make the sky a little lighter at the edge on the horizon, and maybe I'll give it a little tinge of pink. So once I've done the first coat, then I go back through everything and I refine it and I add more layer. And that's where I work on the edges, and I make sure that the edges for each part are soft if need be, and I keep them hard if need be. But mostly, especially with acrylics, I try to work really hard and make the edges soft, like I showed you on the water a little earlier. So one way to do this is to go like this. Then you take another brush that is clean, and you just remove a little bit of this. Like this. It's better to use a clean brush. This way it won't be contaminated. You can just go like this. This way it will make the edge very soft. There. All right, so by adding this little bit of lightness, it helped with the sky. It helped the sky be a little bit more, a little deeper, basically, is what I wanted to do. As I go up, then the sky goes darker.
Okay, Claire, you're at 8:30.
8:30, okay. So all right, so I worked a lot in this area of the sky because now I want to show you how I work to make the, I will repaint this grouping of trees. So this is my example. As you can see, these trees are in the shade, except there's a little area here that is in the light, and the tip of this one is also in the light, and maybe it's a little bit light here. And although it's a big blob of dark green, putting some shape into it makes it a lot more interesting. So to do this, now instead of using one green that covers everything, I'm going to use different greens. And the greens that I use are always a mix of my yellow and my blue. And so for example, when I use the ultramarine blue and the Canyon yellow medium, I get a nice forest green. And if I want this green to get darker, even darker, then I can add a little bit of red in it. And the Canyon red medium is a nice red for this. Or if I add the other yellow that I have on my palette, which is the Canyon Yellow Pale. And I get a green that is lighter like this. I know that edges are lighter. And so therefore, I put some of this color on the edge there. And now I'm going to add a little bit of red to my olive green. To make a green that is in the shadow. So to make a green that is in the shadow, the best is always to make that green again and put a little bit of its complementary color in it, which is red. So it will give and desire to the paint to vibrate. When you put the complementary color next to a color, it always tends to vibrate. And here at the bottom, where the most shadow is, also sometimes on the top. So now if I show you now, see, it has some shape, it's got some light on top, it's got the dark at the bottom. It's all made with combination of the blues, the two blues and the two yellows that I have on my palette, and also some red. All right. And now the shadow, using the same color, which is the ultramarine blue mixed with the Canyon Yellow Media. And I'm covering this, but I'm covering it thinly because these trees are reflecting the water, and so therefore they will reflect a little lighter because they're so dark. And make sure that if there is light in the trees, then the light reflects in the water. Like so. But also what happens is in the waters there are ripples, and so therefore showing those ripples is always a good way to show good reflection. So I'm going to go back to my paint color brush and use a cobalt blue with some white to make the blue color again. And let's see. Now I'm going to show you the ripple. I don't have to replicate exactly, but just so you see, right here, there's a ripple under this piece of land, and that's why we don't see the reflection. There's also a ripple here under this piece of land, and that's why we cannot see the reflection except for the very tip here. This is what's happening. There are ripples here, and that's why you know, the reflection gets cut off. So we're gonna do something similar with my white and blue that I mixed. So I'm gonna do something similar like this. Now, what happens when I do this, because I'm painting wet on wet, I get green on my brush. So I want to remove that green from the brush before I mix more of my color, because I don't want to have any green in my blue at this time. And down here, I put a little bit of a ripple here. And a little lower with a darker blue. Or in the blue that has a little bit of yellow in it. It's important to have the same color. And also, you can go like this way, more of a ripple, and more of a ripple effect. And on my photo, I also have this now what I'm trying to do something and not have enough paint on my brush. There, this is better. It's important to have the same color, so there. Now we have the reflection and we have the land, and just one little thing that's bothering me there. I'll try and fix it. This here. There. All right, so I could keep going. It's 8:41, but at least you can see a little bit of my process, and you can see how much can be done in such a short period of time. What do you think, Barbara?
I think that, should I unmute it so that everybody, if they have any questions, can ask?
Yeah, now
think
would
it's
be a good time, and maybe you can switch to the other view.
Okay.
This one here.
And I'm trying to find Claire's.
Meanwhile, does anyone have any question? So if you are not unmuted yet, you can unmute yourself.
I'm making you the host.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So does anyone have any question?
There was a moment earlier where you got a new brush and you said, I'm going to use this brush to soften the lines. And I couldn't see if it was a dry brush, a wet brush, or a brush with paint. Couldn't see what you did with the brush.
Okay, so is it right
Yes.
here when I did the horizon?
I believe it was.
Or is it right here when I corrected this?
It may have been the second one.
Because this here, there was a little bit of an area that needed to have the dirt color. So I did put dirt color on the brush to correct it. But back here, when I painted the horizon, so if I make this a little closer. So when I painted this horizon here, I had 2 brushes going, and each brush had its own color on it. One had the watercolor and one had the faraway mountain color. So I would paint the water, and then while it's still wet, then I can use the mountain color to soften the edge and repaint the mountain. And so therefore I got a very soft edge on those, on that area.
Thank you.
Okay, one question we had from Donna was, could you wipe out some of the color instead of trying to cover with wet paint?
Once it's dry, it's a little harder to wipe it out. If it's still wet, you could wipe it out. But it dries pretty fast, so see? It's already dry. Everything's already dry. Maybe, well, maybe this isn't dry.
Mhm.
So, but I usually try to just cover it. But you could with a wet brush. So you can wet your brush. And for example, let's say I don't like this ripple here. I wet my brush, and then I can go here and erase it like this. But it will probably erase the paint that's under as well. So if I use paper towel, yeah. So it erases not just the ripple, it also erases the paint that's under.
Mhm.
So I prefer to just paint over.
Mhm.
Sometimes though, I will wet an area to try and erase it, Any
Okay,
other questions?
Yes, another question is from Amy. When you soften the edge with a clean brush, did you use the same paint color or water or just a dry brush?
Okay, so to soften the edge, if I'm using 2 different colors and I am painting the 2 different colors, so I have 2 brushes, each brush has its own color. And so therefore they're not dry, they're wet, and they each have their own color. So I would paint, so let's say I demonstrate this again. That's a good question because a couple of people have asked this. So I'm going to demonstrate this again. Let's say I want to soften this edge over here. So I'm going to change to have my iPad be the spotlight again. Okay, this is good. So let's say I want to soften this edge that's here. And I'm going to make this a little closer so that you can see it a little bit better, as close as possible. So this area here has a very hard edge at this time. So to soften the edge, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the purple color or the watercolor, and I'm also going to make the color of the bushes in the background. So let's see. So now I'm making this color, which is it's kind of like a grayish color made with cobalt blue, very teeny little bit of yellow, canyon yellow, pale, teeny bit of alizarin, and some white. So I'm getting a grayish kind of color. And once this is ready, then I'm also going to make, so I have the color, yeah. And now I'm going to make the color of the water with cobalt blue, white, and a little bit of alizarin crimson in that section because it's pinkish. So to test, yeah, that's pretty much the right color. So now I have my two brushes. This one is watercolor. This one is the mountain color. So I put my color for my water right along the edge like this. And maybe I'll go over a little bit. And then I'm going to use the brush that I have the mountain to go like this. So I'm going to put it this way. It's just going to be easier to paint. And maybe you guys will see. So I'm going to go like this. And I find that it's still needs a little bit more work. So I'm going back with the other brush, the one that has the watercolor, and now I can brush sideways and make this beautiful soft edge. There, I just need to retouch this and then all set. So I hope this answers the question. Now I'm going to show you the edge to show you how it's a lot softer now. See this section? A lot softer. So, does that answer the question about the soft edge and how I do this? Is there any
Yes.
other questions? Oh, yes. Okay, good. Very good. Is there any other questions? Well, it's already 8:51. So the recording is going to be available. And I will make it available on my website. And I think that, Barbara, you're going to also make it available.
Right, I'm going to make it available. I'll put a link on our new website, which I hope to have going out live next week. So we'll just be, right now, if you want to get to the new website to see what it's like, just go to chelmsfordartsociety.com. Right before the Chelmsford, type in the word new and a period, and you'll go to the new site. Any artist on this presentation, if you want to go ahead and send me information on an artist and have us highlight you, let me know, and I will be happy to do that.
Yes, and so what I will do with the recording, I will upload it on YouTube. Then I will share this link with Barbara. Barbara, you can put that on the Chelmsford Art Society website. I will also put it on my website, ShayClaireArtSchool.com. You can see the website email, the website URL right there on the screen at this time. And there is, under classes, there is a section that's called class recording, and that's where you will be able to find the link. So it was a pleasure to do this demonstration for you guys today. I also want to invite you to the Brush Art Gallery. Starting in November, I will have some great little items for the holidays. I'm making holiday ornaments, holiday homemade cards, and I also have classes available. So if you guys are interested, let me know. And thank you for attending today.
And then I'd also like to say that the Chelmsford Art Society is going to have a second demo, a Zoom presentation next month on November the 18th. And Elaine Seidel is going to do a session on photography.